Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Powerhouse Woman Show. I'm your host, Monica Pierre. Thank you so much for joining us today. What we do on this show is bring you the most incredible, amazing, fantastic powerhouse women. They share their story, they share their mission, their purpose, what they're doing, and they share their life lessons as well. So we're always excited to have them on. Our show is brought to you by the Storymaker Academy, our 6-month program where we work with you to discover, develop, and deliver your powerhouse story and talk. Speaking of stories, we're going to talk today about knowing and owning your own story. And we're so excited because joining us today is Eleanor Austin. Eleanor is joining us live from St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. Yay, our Canadian friends. Yes,
Woohoo!
we love you. Okay. We love
Thank
you.
you.
I'll
Love
put that out there. We
you
love
too,
you
Monica.
guys. Okay. And I can't wait to delve into your story, your backstory, what you're doing in the world of LinkedIn, why you are sought after as a LinkedIn leadership, branding coach, and workshop facilitator. And we have things in common, our past, and I'm just excited. So thank you for being with us today on the show.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be among your powerhouse women
Yes, our
and to be with
powerhouse
you.
women.
Woohoo!
And I know we have people who are going to be joining us now live and a little bit later, but people have a lot of questions sometimes about LinkedIn and how you can build your brand and be authentic as well. But I'd like to kind of step back a second and ask you to share a little bit about your backstory, your background, and before you became this sought after LinkedIn leadership, branding coach, and workshop facilitator.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, you and I, we really do connect around story. And everyone has a story, just no one has your story. And it's that power that comes with a story that will make a person stand out. It will give people a reason to speak about you, give people a reason to remember you. And because research will prove that we remember story much more so than we remember facts, for instance, or even images. And so there are many reasons why we can use the power of story to build our professional brand.
So your background is in story, telling of stories, telling stories. So you started in and have more of experience in the radio realm. Tell us about
Yes.
your experience in radio. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
it's in Canada, correct?
that's right. Yes, it's actually with what's called the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, so the
Mhm.
CBC. It is a national a network of stations across the country. And it is, you know, some might say it's kind of like NPR in a sense. The closest probably example would be BBC in Britain, modeled on the same
Mhm.
type of broadcasting system. And in that sense, you know, I'm so grateful for my background in terms of having been a journalist. I have like 15,000 hours of interviewing experience, which really comes in handy because then I went into marketing and specifically marketing research. So, still that same sense of discovery and storytelling, only rather than being on radio, it was in the boardroom. And then I moved into social media. So, you know, another way of telling stories, but specifically on the professional network, LinkedIn. And my trajectory from storytelling into marketing onto LinkedIn, this new platform, was really now helping people tell their own story and then market themselves on LinkedIn. But it does go deeper than that. As I mentioned, that everyone has a story, just no one has your story. The way I work with people to discern that story is by looking first at your purpose. In a sense, the way that Simon Sinek would say, we start with why. So I start with why, but we just don't end there. We go into the who, like who you are, who you want to connect with, and then the how, bringing that
Those
to
5 W's and an H, right?
Exactly. In my case, thank you, because I have looked at that analogy so many times, because in journalism, we talk about the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And in the program that I lead clients through, it's really the 5 Ps. But it kind of does begin with the why, but it is your purpose moving into your profile. So we learn about who you are. Then we tell other people who you are in your profile. And then we move on to the people, because people do business with people who we know, like, and trust. And so then we get, who is your network? Those are the people in your network. And then we move on to your presence. How do you bring your brand to life on LinkedIn? And the last part is, if you're counting, the last P is progress. And that is really, what are your objectives so we can measure them? Like, do you want to grow your network by 100 people who represent this industry by this period of time, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this: when you work with clients, or even when you were a reporter, and especially I love when it would be people who hadn't been media trained that we would talk to, or weren't elected officials, that type of thing. But for whatever reason, other people who normally would not get exposure, or even people would know their names. What do you think, particularly powerhouse women, maybe get wrong or mistaken about or don't understand when it comes to sharing their story? Everybody has a story. They just don't have your story. What do you find in your work?
It's so interesting because people don't realize they have a story, or they don't realize they have a story worth telling, or perhaps a story that others want to hear. And none of those things are true. And we are 99.9% the same DNA, which is fabulous because there's so much that unites us. The part that's important to zero in on when it comes to personal branding is that 0.1% that makes you you and makes me me. So that's what I help people zero in on, is their 0.1%. It's what makes you unique. And the reason we tell that through story is because it helps you become memorable. But also what I have learned is that when people feel that they know their story, they become anchored in their story. They become confident, not only in their story, but because of their story, they become confident in who they are. They just start showing up in new ways. And that's what I have found to be so remarkable. Like in the very beginning, when I started to notice this, there was a person who she and I had worked together on her profile. And then I noticed that she was showing up with a much stronger, confident voice on LinkedIn, even in the comments that she was making. So I asked her what the difference was. And she said, well, now I know when people look at my profile, they'll know I have credibility. And it's not just there. I kind of have termed it, you get more biz boards and awards, because, another example is a woman amazing in that she worked in international trade and development, and her profile sounded great, sounded very professional, talked about what she did, but it didn't talk about who she was. So someone who's working in international trade and development, it became important to learn something I didn't know about her until I started this interview experience and started asking her stories. She speaks 5 languages, born in Paris, lived and worked on 5 different continents. And then after we told that story in her profile, what she would say is the floodgates opened. People started to see her differently. She started to see herself differently. And then people started to see her as a global citizen, the one that she is. They started connecting with her daily, not weekly. They started inviting her to collaborate, to do business together. She started being nominated for awards for the first time in her 35-year career and winning them. And she already was on a number of boards, but she has just now exceeded 12,000 connections on LinkedIn.
Wow.
And so she is another example of someone who had an amazing story. Just, she didn't realize it. She said, oh, I said, well, why is this not part of your profile? Because it's important for what you do. She says, well, it's just me. People don't see what's so special in themselves. And that's why, you with your interviewing background, me with my interviewing background, that comfort that we are able to bring, that belief that we have in other people, they start to see themselves as the special person that they are.
Right. I've noticed that too with my Storymaker Academy.
Yes.
I work with others. I just opened the prep room where I absolutely have people come in, and we spent laser focused time together, getting them ready for their next big event. And I always say, walk in being you.
Exactly.
There's whatever it is, walk in being you.
Walk and be you. There's an Oscar Wilde quote that I always use. And it is, be yourself because everyone else is taken. And it's one of my favorite quotes because it's so liberating. We can be that 0.1% that makes us unique. And that is what's needed in our world. AI is not going to replace the power of who we are as humans. AI doesn't really have the capability yet, at least, of being us. And so while we can, let's be us.
Are you concerned or worried about AI, or do you see it as a tool that we can use to be bolder as humans telling our stories?
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting because in working with clients in real time, yesterday I was working with one and we were working on her headline for her profile. And, I love words. I love coming up with the exact word, but sometimes it's great to have that broader thesauruses, to tap into. But also, why not use the information that's available to us? Everyone has information at our fingertips, but we need to make it ours or we just sound like everybody else. I was in a meeting with someone and I received the best compliment because she said, everyone knows when I comment on a LinkedIn post, I'm not using AI. They can see the authenticity. So I think it's not only important for us to be ourselves, but for us to bring our unique voice forward. And that's how we will stand out in a world of AI. Attention is that rare, finite commodity. And so how do we break through the noise of sameness of everyone sounding like, the same 10-point list that everyone has access to? It is through knowing who we are, articulating who we are, not only so we know who we are, but other people can see us for who we are, and then bringing that voice forward.
And thanks to you, Eleanor, for being with us today and joining us and talking about your passion. I feel it. I feel it.
Thank you.
Yes. And it's invigorating, right? When you find something in addition to what you have done for many, many years. Now there's this passion as well to help people. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for joining us on the Powerhouse Woman Show. We'll be back again next Thursday live. In the meantime, I want you to find out about what we're doing in the Storymaker Academy, our program where we help you to discover, develop, and deliver your talk, as well as the prep room. We have a lot of good things coming up. I know you have some important opportunities, so let's do some one-on-one intense practice as well. So that's our show, and we'll join you next time on the Powerhouse Woman Show.